Hi, Brit. Thank you very much for stopping by at Poster Studio at 1 Billion Followers Summit.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's my first time in Dubai.
Are you enjoying at least the first couple of days here? The weather is fantastic, I think.
The weather's fantastic. The city's fantastic. I'm so impressed with the summit. It's been great.
I think the gathering for the creators is pretty impressive, isn't it? It's one of the biggest that I'm aware of, actually.
I agree. And it feels different. You can see creators everywhere, capturing content, creating content, learning from each other, having conversations, meeting people. It's been really like it's kinetic energy. You can feel it.
Are you being contacted by creators a lot? Like people approaching you, like trying to introduce themselves?
Sometimes, I mean, we work with so many of the brands and agencies that creators want to work with that it's really interesting to give some of the data that we have back to creators. So that's really the conversations I have with creators is what data can they get their hands on that help them be better advocates of themselves, right? Better represent themselves and the value that they can drive for brands. And then they in turn can go have those conversations directly with brands without us getting in the way.
Let's just step back a little bit and tell, so what sort of sessions you were covering here at the summit and what company you're from and what you're doing.
Yes. So I'm Brit Starr. I'm the CMO at Creator IQ, and we are the operating system for creator marketing. So what that means is brands, agencies, social platforms need infrastructure to really organize and operationalize their creator marketing because they're doing it at such scale. So what our technology does is it helps them discover the right creators, manage and measure across a myriad of activities and outcomes that they're trying to drive, and ultimately measure the effect and efficacy of those campaigns. And we've been doing that for a little over a decade now. And so we have a ton of data that we can use to put back out into the world to really drive the industry forward. So that's what I'm here doing. I've been really lucky to lead a great conversation already today with Gap Inc. and Invisalign, two brands who have been investing in this space for longer than this space actually existed before it was called influencer marketing.
I was going to say, so we used to call it an influencer marketing, and now I keep on hearing you using the term creators marketing.
Yeah.
Does that mean the influencer marketing has evolved into something bigger than just the brand deal that sort of places a product within, and asking an individual, let's say, to advertise their product? So that's what the influencer marketing used to be, right?
Absolutely. I think if you look back in time, influencer marketing was really casting, right? It was traditional. It was, I would like to work with you. I would like you to say these things and do these things so that you can represent my product. It really was advertising via publishers that were on social media, right? Creators or publishers. Today, it is incredibly diversified. It is still that. Brand partnerships still represent a huge majority of revenue for creators and value for brands. But those partnerships have really evolved. They really start out organic in nature, right? Creators that just talk about the brands and products that they love, that they use every day. Brands seeing that content and kind of being able to put some data to that to understand what kind of value it's driving, even without the brand partnership. And then what they can do is reach out and say, hey, I saw your content. I really love what you're doing. Can we start a conversation about how we might work together? And that, I think, is like a small but very significant change in the way partnerships have been structured historically versus today. And then the other thing I'll say is it's very different in terms of kind of the criteria, I guess, like why brands would choose a certain creator.
That's an interesting, an interesting part.
Yes, it's so interesting. If you look back like 2021, it was all follower count, demographics. Again, very traditional, right? Mm-hmm. I am trying to find this creator who lives in this place, who has this kind of audience. That is not how it works anymore. Today, it's really about creator suitability. So like values connection. What do we have in common? How do they represent my brand? Are they a good fit for my brand? And again, that's really different. It doesn't always come in like a clean package, right?
Yeah, exactly. The selection process is probably like the vetting, what we call the vetting is probably really, really complex, right?
Super complex, yeah.
And what does, for example, a creator need to become, let's say, to become an advocate for himself or herself or her channel, let's say, is it still a certain amount of audience or reach to be able to be visible to a brand or somebody who's doing that vetting sort of process?
No. So thanks to TikTok, we live in a content first world. So the way, Instagram used to be built was on a follower graph. It was all about, again, followers. Content graph is different. It's content first. What that means is it doesn't matter if I have 100 followers, 100,000 followers. If my content is breaking through, then I am breaking through. And so it's really about the efficacy, again, of that content and how it is reaching the right consumers at scale. It's also, there's content everywhere. And so one thing I think that's a common misconception is that programs that are newer, that are less mature, are thinking about this in terms of like, maybe I'll work with 2 to 3 creators, right? I'll run a campaign and I'll work with 2 to 3 creators. The best, biggest brands in the world, actually, not even the biggest brands in the world, the brands that are doing this well, that are growing, that are winning today, are working with hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands creators.
How do they do that, though? I mean, that was the panel discussion that you were moderating. So how do brands, it was even called in an interesting way, how do legacy brands integrate creator economy or creator marketing into the traditional marketing? So it's an interesting experience to hear about. So how do they do that? To work with multiple?
Yeah, well, so on the panel, we were talking Gap Inc. as an example, and Damon Berger, who heads up their head of consumer engagement, right? That's the group that he oversees. Really, what he said on the panel is that he is looking to, again, understand the conversation that exists, because these brands, like all of the Gap Inc. brands, exist in social conversation. People create content about Gap, whether they are in partnership with the brand or not. And so understanding that conversation is like baseline, number one. The second is, how can you encourage the right kinds of conversations with the right creators, right? How can you, again, find the suitable creators for your brand, who's kind of stretching your brand in fun ways, who's reaching your audiences in new ways, who's reaching new audiences for you, right? Like he talked about Cat's Eye and their recent collaboration. What a moment, right? And like Gap is such an interesting example of a brand who's been around for 60 years now, who is like really re-energizing themselves in a real way because of these partnerships. But it's not just the one partnership. It's not just like, oh, we collaborated with Cat's Eye. It's the groundswell that happens around that. It's how else you build the layers and tiers of those creator programs and campaigns around that. Yeah,
it probably requires to completely reinvent the entire way the brand is doing the marketing, including the resources and including the number of resources. I think the processes as well, right? And the budgets. There was one number that was very, very interesting for me in your recent keynote, and that was mainly about your statement as well, that some of the traditional budget, numbers are being reinvested into creators marketing or creator economy more and more nowadays. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes. So we did a massive survey of global brand marketers. And we asked them, like, what is the state of the creator economy today? Investment, how are you operationalizing, structuring your teams, et cetera? So from that survey data, what we found is that investment is actually increasing 171% year on year, which is 20 points higher than the past 4-year average, right? So triple digit growth every year for the past 5 years, but this year it jumped 20 points over the last 4-year average. So accelerating, right, in what they're investing. But we all know the year that we just lived through, right?
Yeah.
Like it was a rough.
Yeah,
It's not like we have endless budgets to be using to increase that investment in creator marketing. So it had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And what we found in the survey is that it came from traditional paid channels. So think, if you're still doing like out of home, print, TV, but also digital as well.
Interesting.
Which is interesting.
So what is being sort of not disregarded, but at least deprioritized to prioritize the creators' marketing. So what are those traditional tactics, let's say?
Yes. And
TV, you mentioned TV.
I was just going to say, I think it's what I just went through. And TV can work for brands. Actually, we're seeing a ton of creators show up in TV in front of and behind the camera. It's really interesting. Creators are pretty pervasive and ubiquitous in all media channels now. But I think what's the most interesting for me is if you look at the digital channels specifically, because that trend line of paid TV advertising or print advertising moving into digital channels and then moving from digital into creators is not new per se. But when you look at the digital channels specifically, what we've been seeing more recently is brands are still spending money on digital advertising, but it's creator content. It's not traditional campaigns that you go into a studio and produce yourself or work with an agency and produce. It's creator content, and they're putting money behind that.
Yeah. So basically what we're saying. No, there was one question that I wanted to cover. So, but we mainly probably are talking about the consumer brands, like you mentioned Gap, for example. But do you think the B2B space has got a chance to integrate creators economy, and in what way do you see that happening?
Absolutely. I think there's a blurring of the lines between B2B and B2C in the way we think about our consumers.
Yeah.
I am a B2B SaaS marketer, right?
Yeah.
My company is B2B SaaS. We advertise on LinkedIn to people like me, right? I am a consumer and I am an audience, right? A potential buyer for enterprise software, for example.
That's right.
So there's really no difference. And I think a lot of B2B companies are really starting to adapt traditional creator playbooks and put them into practice. So Notion is a really good example. They've been doing really interesting things with creators, working with them to help create workspaces, right? Asana, another great example. Again, using their products as experiences. And then also, actually, I'm moderating a panel tomorrow about how tech influencers influence every product you own.
That one I need to attend, definitely. Because I've heard something, somebody saying today that the different types of creators. There are nerd creators and there are creators who are all about their identities and stuff. So it's an interesting division. So there's the whole pool of probably niche nerd creators who are perfect influencers for B2B SaaS marketing.
Yes. And we're all nerds in some way. And that's kind of the beauty of creator marketing, I think, is if you take everything away and just think about why it works, it's one, because people trust people. And two, it's conversations that you care about find their way to you. And that happens whether you're shopping for enterprise software or whether you're shopping for lipstick, right? It's it comes to you. And the way you create that kind of space, right, for the conversations to get to your consumers is through creators.
So there was one part in your keynote as well that I found really, really interesting, and I think we just need to probably elaborate a little bit on that. You mentioned that the jump in the money invested into creators economy was massive year to year. Then you mentioned how much money the biggest creators are now taking out of the portion of the money that has been invested there, and there are multiple pays per post sort of models, and there's no healthy middle. Right? So that was the conclusion. So can you elaborate a little bit on that, and how do you see that space evolving?
Yes. So again, we're seeing the massive investment, 171% year on year. Total payments made to creator also going up, right? I think it was 168% year on year. Total dollars paid out to at large, right? But if you look at a per creator, that number is only increasing by 24%. And so if you think of a pyramid, 62% of the payments allocated were to the top 10% of creators, meaning this is a tiny top of the pyramid, with everyone else really, again, more dollars going in, but it's being distributed, right? Piecemeal across more creators. And so I think it's interesting when you overlay that with when we look at what the best brands are doing, the brands that are really winning in the market. but also through creators, they're really investing in long-term, mutually beneficial relationships with their creator partners and community. And that drives value for the brand, which
Yeah.
is right. That's the outcome they're trying to drive. But it does that by treating their creator partners like partners. And so this healthy middle is a real indicator of success for brands. If they're building out that healthy kind of middle class of creators within their overall program, not just the very tippy top powerhouse creators. Not everyone is Mr.
That's
Beast.
right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So, and probably that's not the right distribution.
Right.
It just happened because it was organic back in the days, right? But
Absolutely.
I mean,
And Jimmy's great, and he does great
Absolutely,
work,
yeah.
and he drives a ton of value for brand partners. Also, I think makes more money on like Feastables than he does like through his actual content. So
Yeah.
that's also a really interesting conversation in terms of the evolution of creator revenue bases. But I think the bigger point is, it's really about building relationships. It's about retaining those relationships. When you look at your creator program as a brand, you should think about it in the same way you look at your business. And any business, the number one thing they're going to care about is retention. It is so hard to grow as a business if you are not retaining your customers. It is incredibly hard to grow your creator program if you are not retaining your creators. So again, the value in that, the value of retaining
Yeah.
your creators
Yeah.
and working with them over time is just going to increase that lifetime value. Again, think about the business metrics. It's like CAC to LTV. You can apply that to your
Yeah.
creator program. So just put that hat on. That would be like my advice to brands is put your business hat on. How would you look at your business and then apply that to your creator community? And focus on retention, focus on how you show them the value that they are driving for you, just as you would with your employee base or your teammates.
Yeah. So, what would you now? So, what is probably one or two things you would want this particular region stay with about creators marketing, and the data that you have as a company has been there for a decade and seen different creators grow, right? So what would you want this region stay with in terms of like where do we need to grow, where do we need to move
Yep.
towards, and who is going to help to build those relationships between creators and the brands?
Yeah. I'd say first, like looking at MENA, give yourself a lot of credit because these emerging markets are seeing a lot of energy, right? There's so much untapped opportunity in the way creators can drive value for brands here. I'd say second, lean in, right? Actually understand the conversation that's happening about your brand. Are there creators out there that are creating content about you? What is that content? What do they have to say about you? Third is start relationships, right? Start small, like think of them as focus groups, like get them together. And then ultimately build a playbook, a strategic playbook so that you can understand what you're trying to get out of it, right? We talked earlier about how creators can help drive many outcomes. So define your outcome. Understand what you're trying to get out of it. Is it direct sales? Is it brand awareness? Is it credibility and consideration? Again, creators can do all those things, but you need to know what you're trying to accomplish. And once you do that, you can really build a playbook for how to get there. And again, it's just about understanding, organizing, and acting.
It's I think it's also a very, very interesting thing that I am actually capturing out of it. See, a creator actually can grow together with the strategy that the brand would take. I mean, you don't have to have millions of views or followers right now, but if you pick the right person for the right brand, be it a B2B or B2C, right? And I mean, that helps a creator grow, but it also helps a brand to do marketing in a totally new way.
100%. And it's really interesting because if you look at the way that shifts over time, right? So early on, if a brand is looking at working with a micro creator, like someone just coming up, the brand probably has more clout, right? More presence than the creator. Well, that's going to shift someday, but you've already earned some goodwill with them, right? And so as they get bigger, you get to come along with them as well. And so that is part of that mutual value and usually pays off big in the end. Like investing in creators early really helps with how much value they can bring to you as they grow and mature. The other thing I would say as you're doing that is don't expect exclusivity. That is not how we shop. It is not how we talk.
Exactly.
It is not how creators create content. And so, again, letting them place your products in the context of other products that they use, or even side by side, if that's comfortable with your brand. I think that's a big thing that people have had to get really comfortable with, that can feel odd to marketers who like to be in control.
Yeah, so I wanted to create content only for my brand,
Right.
but I mean that's not. There's a lack of authenticity
Right.
eventually, and the audience will stop actually believing. Right?
Absolutely.
I think that's how it works. It's just so many things. So do you see in my head? I mean, it's very curious. It's a very exciting conversation for me because there's a lot of value as well, and a lot of piece of advice for the brands to actually how to start approaching the creators, marketers, regardless of the niche. So do you see platforms like Creators IQ being a really great help between the brands and the creators, like a platform that helps brands and creators connect and have the right conversation? Do you see that as a good way to start, or sort of?
Yes, you don't need that. So I don't want anyone listening who is, a smaller team, smaller brand to think I need this like big, technology, big infrastructure in order to do this. You don't have to. You can go straight to the platforms. You can search those platforms for your own brand, for keywords, right? Things that are relevant to your brand, and find creators that way. That gets really hard to do with scale. And so, yes, technology has made it so much easier to do things like this, which is a huge reason why investment has unlocked. So I would definitely suggest, when you get to that level, there are so many amazing platforms out there. And depending on what kind of level of maturity and scale you are, there's one out there for you.
Of course.
But yeah, it will help you get data, which is, I think, fundamental to understanding not just discovery criteria and like kind of placing your bets in the right way, but also, again, all the way through into understanding the actual results and efficacy of your investment. But then it will also help you keep things organized. It'll keep a history of your relationships. Like, think about all these, like, you're running one campaign, even with just 10 creators, but now you have 4 different platforms, say, that you're operating on that campaign, or activating on that campaign. You have 6 different formats. You have, right? It's like, it's chaos. And so platforms can really help streamline a lot of that workflow in a way that makes it easier to do, especially with leaner teams, but all the way up through like the biggest companies in the world.
One last thing: is it more about long form or short form? Obviously there has to be a combination, but usually the creators are kind of divided into whether someone is focusing on the long form or on the short form, right?
Yeah, it's such a good question. We've seen short form video go through the roof in the last 3 years in our data. Reels several years ago was coming up like triple digit growth. YouTube Shorts has been triple digit growth. TikTok is the only social platform that has made kind of like neck and neck performance with the likes of Instagram, right? Who's like kind of the lion's share of content. So short form's incredibly important. It's incredibly important for discoverability, for entertainment, for like, again, the quick scrolling content. I am so bullish on long form content. I love long form content, especially on platforms like YouTube, which are a search channel.
Totally.
So the intent of somebody watching a video that is long form, substantive, that you hold their attention for that long, it's just an entirely different canvas. And I think an entirely different kind of consumer experience. So there is place for both, but short form for discovery, incredibly important. Long form for that like intent, again, like getting that substantive content and engagement. And then scripted content, I think we're going to see a lot more of.
Really?
So creators creating series, shows with brand partners or on behalf of brand partners, I think we're going to see a lot more of this year.
I like it because, we used to be all about unscripted, whatever comes into your mind. But now I feel like creators have become a lot more strategic in terms of what they intentional. Let's say intentional. It doesn't mean less creative, right?
Yep, I agree.
I absolutely love this conversation.
Yes,
I'm happy I didn't let this opportunity go. I still brought you into the studio. So thank you very much. It's been really insightful. So thank you for being at Podstar Studio. And this is going to be published on LinkedIn, YouTube. Vision Voices podcast is where I talk to leaders as well. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This was great.